Most of our audience today would probably say, you don't have to introduce Joe, he's a friend of mine. And I feel like that's the case for most of us, because he makes us feel that way, because he takes the time to listen, he takes the time to enact policy that make a difference in our life. And people can always tell he's listening and he cares. Plus, there's the Gail factor. Senator Manchin, thank you so much for being a keynote at Focus Forward, and we look forward to your remarks.
Well, first of all, thank you, Donna, for the kind introduction. And yes, we have known each other for quite some time, and we are from the same area. And then having my wife Gail, I missed her. I missed her speech, but I heard she did quite well for lunch. And I heard, and the thing that was inspiring that we both were, we watched the girls' basketball team, and we got robbed. We got screwed. Yeah, you don't call 30 fouls on one team and 5 on the other, no. Anyway, with that, just the inspiration, just the grit. And I think, and they put it, I think it was Coach that he said at halftime, he was talking, he said, listen, they got 15,000 fans out there. We have 130. I think it's a good match. It's an even match. So it tells you sometimes as an underdog what we think of. But for Donna and to Katie Farmer and all of those who worked so hard, and Rocky and everybody to put this together, thank you all so much for the work you've done. To be here with President Gee and to President Smith, Brad and Gordon, my dear friends, and the faculty and staff at both WVU and Marshall, it's always a pleasure to be with them. You know, I was thinking, how do you put this in perspective? My generation, espionage. I love to read about espionage. I love to hear about it. I want to see the movies and all the different things. And then when I got into the Senate, I was able to go to the farm. That's where the CIA. And I was able to see all the tricks they do and how they've done it over the years. And they'll live underground sometimes in a country of foreign concern that we have until they can tap in. They might be underground for a month or so, and they finally tap in. But they got to do it such precision that no one knows we're listening and gathering all the information. That's the way it was done. And think about how far we've come. And then the internet. I talked to some senators who have been there for an awful long time. Most of us have been there too long, but these are a couple who have been there for a real long time. But they were there when they had to vote on Section 230 to protect the internet. And I said, guys, why'd you leave it wide open? He says, I can't tell you. He said, as I sit here today and knowing what the internet, all the good it has done, how it's advanced our society and our economy, but all the challenges it brings with it. He says, we never thought. They were able to convince us that if you didn't give us some protection, we couldn't grow the internet. It would never take off. And we were convinced, and there's Section 230, they put that in there, gave them total protection, immunity. And now we're going back and trying, you can imagine the lobbying effort going on, trying to go back and fix something that we knew was wrong. Now along comes AI, and here we are. What do? We don't make the mistakes of the past. And if we do AI and do it right, then we basically can put the guardrails on so it can do everything that we know it can be and all the good that it can do, whether it's in healthcare, whether it's in nutrition, whether it's in security, whether it's protection, everything, whether it's our defense of our country. And if you think that's something, you ought to see what's going on in space right now. That's a whole nother planet, if you will, because we got more people participating in space, and that was our domain for years and years and years and years. There was no one but the U.S. We controlled all different altitudes, if you will. We had it all. Now they're up there with us, competing. So we've seen all of this open up, and we have what we call countries of concern, foreign countries of concern. We have 4, very, very, very challenging: China, Russia, Iran, North Korea. These countries are never going to have our values. And we made mistakes 20, 30 years ago, especially when we let China come into the WTO with no strings attached, and all the things that we have done to try to basically build all these economies up so they wouldn't be bad actors in the world, trying to build a world order, if you will. You know, and no different than Iran. I'll give you that was the latest one. JCPOA was basically allowing them to come in and stop their nuclear advancement. And we were going to do that. So I couldn't vote for it because I couldn't get my head around where I come from. You got to show me. If I know what you've been a bad actor and you want to change your ways, then show me something. And let's move on gradually. They want to give them $400 billion overnight, just release $400 billion that we've had, okay, to Iran. And I told President Obama at the time, I said, Mr. President, I'm so sorry. Where I come from, that don't make sense. I can't go home. We know that Iran is a bad actor. We know their values are not ours. We know they want to do everything they can to destroy us, and they're supporting terrorists around the world, the most prolific terrorist supporters in the whole world has ever known. And I said, can't you at least give them in tranches and let them buy themselves back in to the world order, showing they want to be a major player in the world? They can, and they should. And they didn't, so it didn't work out that way. But that's what we're dealing with right now. But most of our cyber attacks are coming from Russia. We know that. And we're watching that very carefully, and we're doing everything humanly possible. Artificial intelligence, it's going to become more available. And they're taking it to another level. And it is so unique to what we've done before. It makes the internet look like what espionage looked like when the internet came in, if I can put that in perspective. That's what you're dealing with on these levels. So where are the guardrails? Well, first of all, and we're looking at it, and we're dealing with it every day in defense. I'm on Armed Services, and I have a cyber committee. I'm chairman of the subcommittee, and I have Mike Rounds, who's a wonderful friend of mine, Republican from South Dakota, smart as a whip. He really gets it, and he spends all his time on this. So I really use and worked with Mike a lot, but I'm the chairman of it. He's the vice chairman. And the things that we have people come in, and we have to take them down in the skiff. So the skiff is down below the visitor center. You know, the visitor center, when you come in the Capitol and the visitor center, we're way down under there in a secured area. And, we still have a hard time understanding how the presidents have gotten all these classified information and all these documents out. The only thing I can say is they bring them to them. But when we go there, we sign in for anything we see. And there's top secret and all this on our desk when we sit down and start discussing, and whoever may be, whether it's FBI, CIA, or any of our clandestine people come in and explain to us what they're dealing with in the world, we're able to question them on everything that we have. But we cannot be briefed before we go in. I can go down and get a briefing beforehand as long as it's secured. My staff can't go. I have one member who has a clearance to get in there with me. So we go there, and we're able to learn things that are challenging, they're inspiring, they're concerning, and it makes you you leave with the knowledge that we have some very good people and doing a tremendous job, but we have challenges no one's ever seen before, and it's coming at us on second by second. I mean, second by second, it's happening. So they're determined to do things, and what the easiest thing they want to get into is our energy. Our energy security is not as secured as it should be. And because it's a private sector. Most countries, of these countries we're talking about of concern, the federal government, their government basically has control over their energy grid and the system. So we're very careful about that because that can bring us to our knees pretty quick. The energy shuts down. Now the other thing is the energy production in this country. We're producing more energy today than we ever have in the history of the United States of America. We're producing more energy in the United States of America than any place else in the world. Saudi Arabia, take whoever you want, China, all of them. We're doing more than anybody else because we have a policy, all of the above. We're producing more oil, more gas, more LNG. Even coal was up 5%, even though the consumption was not as much in this country, but the demand around the world. And we have produced more energy from renewables, green energy, wind and solar. That's good. Everything that we're doing is good. The only thing, my position as being chairman of the Energy Committee, I have been fighting tooth and nail not to have an early retirement of what we call dispatchable, 24/7 energy. When these lights are on, if you want to be here at night, you want to be here in the morning, and whatever time you want to be here, you want the heat and the lights working. You need 24/7 energy. And there's only three things that can do that for you right today's market. Coal has always been one, and basically nuclear has been the other. Natural gas is replacing coal with that, but natural gas, as we know, can be interrupted. Now, we're not going to take any of the dispatchables off until we have the technology of the new technology coming in that'll do exactly the same 24/7. And we're investing more than any place else in the world with that, but they're watching it very carefully, what we're doing with hydrogen, SMRs, small modular reactors, microreactors. All of these things here are going to make a difference in how we live our lives in the next 2 decades. It's rapidly approaching that. But AI is going to either control or dictate or basically destroy. One of the two, one of the three. And we've got to make sure that the United States of America, that we're able to get it right this time. If we can reach back in Section 230 and put some guardrails on. And the guardrails would be basically this. We don't want to interrupt the commerce and everything else and the free enterprise system that we have in this lane. But when it comes to basically human behavior, human nature, this and that, and all the things that they can control or dictate, if you will, we have to be very careful of that. I'll use TikTok. Everyone says, oh my God, we got to have TikTok. You're going to have TikTok. Tell your children and grandchildren, we're not getting rid of TikTok. We're just getting rid of China control and ownership of TikTok. That's it. It's too big a platform, it's too profitable, and it's too basically in demand. Everyone's using it. So to throw TikTok out is not going to happen, but people are crazy. Shelley said there's someone they're calling and threatening and this and that, 13, 14, 15-year-old kids. You know, they just think it's going to shut down. It's not going to shut down. But I guess the best way to explain to all of us and everybody else who wants to listen is we can't have any of our social platforms in their country. We can't accumulate the knowledge that they're accumulating from us as individuals, our thought process. The best way I've been able to understand all of this goes on is algorithms. They know exactly what you want, what you like it, and when you're going to get it. If I'm going on a flight sometime, a long flight, I said, I'm going to load some movies on my iPad. So I get Netflix, and I said, well, okay, I'm getting ready to load my movies. Now I open up, hell, the movie's already there. There might be 10. I said, where'd they come from? I didn't load them up. Who loaded them? And if it's for Joe's iPad, it pretty much knows what Joe likes to watch. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness. So that's my little bit of introduction and my glimpse of it and understanding it. You know, it took me a while to even use the iPhone. So when you get me the iPad and this and that, and now try to make all this work, it's a lot different than's going on. We got to put in place a framework for AI that is modernized but not overly restrictive. That's all I can tell you. And we're watching that very carefully. I just don't hope we miss the opportunity to do it before the amount of AI is so affluent in our society that you can't pull it back. That's what we're trying to get it as quick as we can. So you'll see us do it in defense and all the defense of our country. We'll do that as quickly as we can, and we'll do that first, and it'll basically permeate where we can do it in the rest of it. I can't tell you about the political process. I'm concerned. I really am concerned for my country and your country and our country, because I can tell you it's the greatest country on earth. But the politics is dividing us so much. The things I can talk about that make sense that we should do, you would think it's a natural. Someone will look at it and say, how can I get some political mileage out of this? This is where you all have to talk back. There's 55 to 60% of us that's in the sensible middle. You might be part of the grand old party. You might be part of the old Democrat Party that was responsible and everybody worked together, and we just, we had a little fun with it, but we had good policies. There's no such thing as good policies today when it comes to the politics, because the business of politics has gotten so great. It's a duopoly of businesses. It's a Republican business and a Democrat business in Washington. They're doing extremely well. Billions of dollars are coming in. And you get rewarded more for a bad actor. The worse you operate and the worse you basically villainize. So we make you pick a side. They weaponize politics, pick your side. We got to fix AI. Now, wait a minute. Is that going to help my business model or not? Who else be giving me money right now? And if they're against it, that might be bad for my business model. We've got to get over that. And it's not going to happen from the extremes of both parties. It'll happen from the sensible middle. And the sensible middle is going to have to unite. And that's what we're trying to do. We're working like the Dickens, and Democrats and Republicans, some of us, they say, well, you're all leaving. Well, we might be leaving because I'm leaving, because I can tell you this. After 14 years, I know it's not going to be changed in Washington. It's going to be changed with West Virginia and every place else in the country that people understand. I've got more power than you know, and they're counting on me to get elected. Joe Biden or Donald Trump cannot get elected unless this room votes for him, one or the other. You might not like either one. They've gone both too far, whether you're Democrat or Republican, but you'll end up probably either sitting on the sidelines or choosing one because this one's least worse than that one. And that's what we're going to end up with. And that's what's scary right now. Because it's going to take basically the guts and some toughness that this is going to change. If we're going to protect, because AI is going to take you to a level that what we see after AI is in robotics with AI too, completely out of this world. Completely out of this world. Scares the living bejesus out of you. So all of these things here depend on, are we determined to get ahead of the new technology age that's coming, and with AI coming into it, and seeing what we're going to be seeing. There's some interesting people I've had the opportunity to know over the few years, and what they have done basically for our country and trying to do to protect our country is unbelievable. But the challenges they have is the bureaucracy. And I would just tell all of you this, you've got to get past it. You cannot allow any of these politicians or people that want your vote and support to be of character that it's going to be more about them or more about a party than it is about our country. Because right now the country is going to need us all. I've said this. I have never been, I'm not making a political speech, but I want you to know where I'm coming from and how I got to where I am. I think we need term limits in America. I think the Supreme Court, thank you. I think the Supreme Court should be one 18-year term. 118. I think the President of the United States should be one 6-year term. I think basically that a senator should have 2 6-year terms. I'm up, I'm out. I should be out. So 2 6-year terms. And a House of Representatives or Congress should be 6 2-year terms. 12, 12, 1 6, and 1 18. And I swear to God, how I come to that conclusion, about 10 years ago, I'm down in southern West Virginia, and I'm talking to about 200 or 300 people, and had a town hall meeting, and Tom's been to them. We've all been to them, Mike, all of us. And the person was asking me questions, and she said, I really want you to be for term limits. And I was thinking, well, I've never been for term limits, because I always said, well, you get good people, they understand, they get a little bit of experience, and you want that person. And the lady, she was the sweetest could be, she says, listen, Joe, if we had term limits, maybe we get one good term out of you. I had no comeback. She sold me. I had no argument. I said, I'm in. Count me in. And from that day forward, I have been there, because I can tell you one thing. If a president had 1 6-year term, you wouldn't see the crap's going on right now. If the Supreme Court had 1 18-year term, you wouldn't see this. And if we had, just think about this, if we had terms in the House and the Senate, there'd be enough courage to do the right thing no matter how much pressure they had upon them. And you wouldn't see what the crap we're going through right now. It's unbelievable. But anyway, I'm concerned about the energy. I'm concerned because that's our vulnerable spot. And when you take the energy, then you go down to our water supply, and you go down to all the necessities that we have, and our food supply. That's a whole nother game, gang. A whole nother game. And we have got to be on top of this. I've worked with my colleagues across the aisle to bolster our cyber protection capabilities. Last year along with Senator Risch, we introduced the ETAC, Establishment Act, which establishes the Energy Threat Analysis Center at the Department of Energy. And it's going to serve as the energy sector centralized hub in the federal government for cyber information sharing and threat response. You saw some things there, and all the threats that were made, and you better pay us. If you don't pay us, we're going to do this, and reveal all the stuff. The companies that get that, we don't see it. They don't have any responsibility to report to the federal government, so we can intervene. You know how we found the one guy that shut the oil, what was that, the oil line they shut down? They had $5 million, what was it? Colonial Pipeline, that's right, Colonial Pipeline. You know how we found them? The hackers were so stupid, they had their hacker address on. They had their address. We went back and got into them that way. That's how we stopped it. Crazy stuff. So anyway, last Congress, we provided $1.9 billion in a bipartisan infrastructure law to shore up cybersecurity across the transportation, energy, and water sectors by supporting utilities and state and local governments, include $250 million in funding for rural and municipal utilities. Let me tell you the thing about rural. We are states totally rural, and Gale is Appalachian Regional Commission. It's all mostly rural areas. The problem that the divides happen in the country right now, you have basically rural and urban, and our country is almost split. Urban thinks one way, rural thinks another. And you know why? Because rural believes that they have gotten at the short end of the stick, and they truly have. Well, I noticed it when all the funding in COVID went out. When COVID went out, there's 20% of us that live in rural America. 66 million people live in what we consider rural America. And with that 20%, you would think, well, 20% of the funding should come. How it basically it got to a level where I'm watching, because we were in these bipartisan committee groups, and I'm thinking, well, this is how they want to disperse this money. It was education and healthcare with COVID. We were getting 8 and 9%. I said, something's wrong. We got 20%. We're not getting our fair share. The way federal government thinks, and we got to get their mindset. So anybody here with the federal government, start thinking differently. Here's the thing about it. I know how it works. You have a room like this, and we have a tremendous crowd, 500, 600 people. Donna was telling me that registered. That's wonderful. So you get basically return on in so much money it costs to do this. We get this much per person. It's pretty good. Now let's say you start scattering it out, and there's only 50 people in this room, and you go to another town, it might be 75. It takes you a while. So your cost incrementally to what your return is not as great. So if you go to a community and you spent, we're going to put $100 billion out, and you go to a community that has an area of 10 million people versus a state that has 1.7 and a state that doesn't have any city bigger than 50,000, I'll tell you, our numbers don't look as good. So for politicians, they want to get the biggest bang for their buck. Well, we did this, and this is what we did with this money we spent. And we've got to fight like the Dickens. So don't take any back seat for the 20% that you want and you need, because it is there and it should be. Let me just finish up by saying that I just came from Dr. Razai and out at the health center with Gordon and the whole group, and what they're doing with the brain and stimulations and all the things that West Virginia's on the cutting edge. We're the leader in that. He's going to be here. I understand Dr. Razai is going to be here and speak. It's going to be amazing what he tells you. Anyway, to see what we can do and who we are and what we're able to do in the state of West Virginia with Brad now, with Marshall, we got our anchors on both ends of our states. Working together as one makes a difference. Working together as one. You know, we don't have to duplicate things. We can basically, who's good at this? Let's make sure we invest in that. We can't afford to redo it and do it twice. So I want to say as I finish up, the global AI race is just beginning. The United States must remain at the forefront of this new emerging technologies, and the Department of Energy is an essential component of that effort. And so we have a lot of work to do, and my committee does, but I can tell you we're on top of this. We're watching it and doing everything I can. I finally want to say this to you. I've had 42 years to be able to serve my great state and learn it better than I could have ever learned it in so many different ways. I didn't like politics. I didn't want to get involved in politics. I still don't like it. People say, well, why in the hell did you stay in it so long? Well, I'm a slow learner. It took me that long to figure out I really didn't like it. But I will tell you this. Every time I got involved, I said, well, I started out as a House of Delegate, and I was at Marion and Taylor County. I was one of 100, and I said, you know what? If I was a state senator, I'd be one of 34. I could do 3 times as much good and help 3 times as many people. So I ran for the state Senate, and then my territory was Monongalia and Marion. And I thought, you know, if I was one of one, if I was governor, I could really do something for my state. So I ran in 96 and got defeated, and I thought, well, at least I tried. And I don't know how I got sucked back into it. I really don't know. But I think it was some of the people that really were against me, and their candidate didn't win at the end, so they come back and says, well, we want you to try again. I said, well, let me tell you one thing. If I do it, we're going to do it my way, because your way didn't work. We didn't work too good on that one. So we changed things a little bit and got back involved. And then as governor, and then as a senator, I was really probably the most unreluctant senator they've ever had up there. I hated it the first day I got there. I knew I made a big decision. I said, how could I have done this? Why would I do this? And then it's the patience of Job, because it takes so long, and we're called the most deliberate body because it is a deliberate process. And it was so hard to do that, to get into that routine. But then as you watch, you look for an opening. And the openings come far and few in between, but when they come, you better make sure you maximize the effort. So all of you in your own position right now, wherever you are, there'll be a time in the business or wherever you're working or whoever you're working with or for, or where you want to be and how you want to be more influential and make good happen. There'll be that time. You better be ready to go. That's all I can tell you, because it goes pretty quick. It'll fly by you and you say, what happened? I missed that. You don't want to miss it. And when you get to that point there, and it's so surreal sitting in the office of the President of the United States coming from Farmington, West Virginia, and the President calls you every week wanting to do, and that 50-50 threshold, just one vote, makes a difference. And I never looked at it from a power standpoint. I looked at it, could I stop some bad stuff and maybe help some good stuff? And the 117th Congress will go down as one of the most productive Congresses we've ever had. That was from 2021 to 2023. And now we're in the 118th, which will be the least productive in the history of the United States of America. We usually pass about 500 plus bills every 2 years. We've only passed 39 so far. 39. That's not leadership. That's not what the world looks to. That's not who they're going to follow. I can assure you. We've got to get our act back together. My Republican friends, they've got to get their act together in the House, and Democrats have to help them. If the Republicans are the majority, then you have to help them be in leadership. Don't basically deny them the leadership, because we all prosper from it. And whoever the president may be, you got to help them. You got to make sure they're the best they can be, whether it's a person you voted for like or not. That's just the way the system is supposed to work, and we're getting away from that. But I've had the unbelievable opportunity to travel all over and learn about this country of ours and how great we are and how many people depend on it. There's nobody else going to take the leadership of the United States of America, I can assure you. There's no one waiting in line. There's no country that says, oh yeah, we're ready to go. Yeah, we want to be the most benevolent country in the world. We want to be the most sympathetic. We want to feed the world. We want to do it all, which is what America does. When things go to hell in a handbasket, the U.S. is who they look to, and they still do. As far as the monetary currency of the world, U.S. dollar. Everything you think, it's because of us, the leadership that we have. And we're not showing that right now. We've got to get our moxie back. We've got to get back who we are. And that's basically by doing it, building it, producing it, inspiring people, giving them an opportunity to be everything they can be. And you've allowed me to do that. You have. So let me say, on behalf of Gail and my family, the honor of a lifetime has been